Thank you for attending our virtual event. I'm really pleased with the quality of attendees, registration, and very much our speakers. And a quick note, this event, this session, all of the sessions are simulive, meaning you're able to ask questions in the chat and the speakers are in attendance and will be doing their best to answer your questions. So hopefully this makes the event more interactive. And I want to get right into it. What was one of the key reasons for starting this value creation summit is the horrible state of forecasting in the software industry. At peak, over 60% of companies, according to Pavilion, were missing their plan. And that's just shocking when you think about the quality of companies, management teams, compensation, relative sophistication of the sales organizations relative to other industries, that the misses are that pervasive. And Dave Kellogg, who is a software great, both operator and writer, recommends a 90% confidence interval in your sales plan. And what that translates into is a miss once every 2.5 years. And clearly that's not the case with these misses quarter after quarter. It has really, really significant human costs. What we've seen here, use data from People Data Labs, which is a leading employment alternative data company, combined with our Alto model, which is a quantitative model we've developed at Cloud Ratings, and looking at a high signal composite of key B2B SaaS companies that, despite very clear signs of slowing at the end of 2021, grew their sales headcount, marketing headcount by a total of 28% past that peak, in the face of slowing demand, declining quota attainment. And what you saw were very, very brutal and significant layoffs in 2023 and muted hiring since, because that overhiring was so significant. And that has real costs in terms of morale, culture, productivity impact on the remaining sellers, and before those layoffs, carrying all that unproductive capacity, all that excess marketing spend that comes with the extra headcount. So very, very real human and organizational costs. The economic and valuation costs are obviously significant. And here we use a case study with Zendesk and their private equity buyout in 2022. They had received an offer at a $17 billion valuation. During the course of the M&A process, they started to miss their plan. And not in the craziest amounts when you look at the scale of Zendesk or the absolute dollars involved in magnitude of miss, but it ultimately led to a $6.8 billion loss in valuation. So again, missing your plan, dramatic valuation drop. And that makes sense, right? What are you investing in software? You're investing in sales machines and growth. And when there's signs that the durability, the reliability of that machine is in question, that has a dramatic impact on multiple, because you just don't know exactly what you're getting. So it's very, very weighted to growth, and forecasts that you don't hit have an outsized impact there. And all of this was foreseeable in our view if you use forward-looking data and modern tooling. And in our data science practice with the Alto model, took a look at a key top of the funnel indicator that we use in our modeling, just the sole indicator of many sources, and the results speak for themselves. You saw buyer interest in Zendesk waning relative to their competitors. And this graph speaks for itself, that this miss was foreseeable, just looking through the buying cycle and data around that. And not to just cherry pick Zendesk or that sole indicator from us, but broadly at Cloud Ratings, we test data rigorously before involving it in our models. And here we looked at the predictive power over a lag zero or current quarter basis all the way out to 6 quarters out, the predictive power of alternative data at the top quartile versus an older school method like systematic channel checks, like talking to your partners, seeing if they're going to beat their forecast. So there's enough parallels with kind of how people do pipeline reviews and internal sales management. And here the call out is alternative data is 5 times better. Back to forecasts. It's a pervasive issue in software. Bain did a study of software buyouts. Decent to modest misses on the revenue line, far more significant misses on the EBITDA line. Relative to our speakers today, many of them will be focused on GTM. which is a key driver of that margin expansion that isn't being realized. They'll go through techniques to improve your GTM productivity. Obviously, in a dynamic macro environment, tariffs, interest rates, inflation concerns, again, you can think of the headlines, but we always like to just go cut into it. And using one of our indicators from our Alto model, that's relatively real time and what we view as a very strong proxy for end demand in the software industry, that buyer demand has held up reasonably well. And in fact, kept on a nice trend line even through Liberation Week, which was the early April start of tariff announcements and the uncertainty therein. And Guy Rubin, who runs Ebsta, which is a revenue intelligence software platform with $48 billion of B2B pipeline flowing through it, has a good call out that macro and tariffs are a perfect excuse for BNC players. And from my perspective, it makes perfect sense. All of this news is in the headline, and of course, it's very plausible that any software buyer, any organization's facing uncertainty, so they're going to slow down or pull back on a deal. And he advocates for using data, and in their instances, that's in your inbox, your CRM, and your call recordings, and they are able to leverage AI and machine learning to really systematically do that. And it's just fundamentally different than human pipeline reviews. Here we have data from Maxio with the theme that all of your forecasts and all of your challenges are case specific and depend on your category. We looked at volatility and revenue growth rate over the last few years, and some of it's logical. Transportation, supply chain, logistics, restaurants, hospitality are volatile. Some of it's surprising. Public sector, DevOps. If you're a CFO or a leader setting your forecasts and want some case-specific, industry-specific perspectives, ping me on LinkedIn. I get questions like that a lot. I enjoy them, and I'll do my best to share some of our perspectives and take a look in some things that we look at that might accelerate the work you're doing. I love those conversations, so please reach out to me. Iconic Growth recently published some data that we cut further through. The call out here is in 2025, below $250 million, performance across the funnel, marketing and sales, full funnel is deteriorating. Just across the board, so very much a red flag. And the most significant issue, in my view, is a combination of pipeline and win rates. On a headline basis, pipeline seems fine, 3.6x on a stated basis. But when you look at win rates, as they've declined, old rules of thumb do not apply. And mathematically, you really need much higher coverage. 2024, with the win rates and pipeline as they stood, there was a 10% buffer. In 2025, the Iconic data implies there's a 13% deficit. So you have negative margin for error. And that's very concerning relative to everything else we've discussed. Earlier, we did a study of 227 missed forecasts using Pavilion's data set. The number one issue was pipeline. And the other key drivers will be addressed in today's summit and today's speakers around sales execution or GTM execution and strategy. So we're excited about the fit with some of these themes we've covered and all of the speakers today. And I'm happy to offer our perspectives. In the instance of some of the data sets here, Cloud Ratings has done extensive testing, and we're happy to speak to those. In the case of Ebsta, we are launching a joint product or going into the market with Revenue Insights as a Service, which Ebsta is delivering to private equity firms and their portfolio companies. Guy will cover that today. I've been very, very much impressed with it. The results they've had with an HG portfolio company, truly transformative. Highly recommend it. I can offer my perspectives. And also, if you're considering Revenue Insights as a service, also offer some insights from our Alto model that can help you prioritize, hey, which companies are going to have the most volatility? Matt, what are red flags you're seeing in your data that might help us prioritize investing in Revenue Insights as a service? So want to facilitate those introductions. Excited to be working with Ebsta and excited to have all of these other speakers at the event. So we'll get into it again, ask them questions. Thank you for attending and really appreciate it.